Bitcoin is quickly setting up its next short-term move, and in today's video, we'll be going over areas of interest for price targets for this move, and also, of course, timing targets as well, if that's even the right terminology. However, before we get into it, I want to make a very, very quick announcement for the quantum wave bands, which many people have been getting into and been getting really good feedback on this as well, which I'm very happy about. We've actually begun the process of building the Discord, and you can actually claim your Discord role now in the exact same way that you claimed your TradingView indicators. If you're unsure of how to do this, all you need to do is just go to the teachable tutorials and it'll walk you through there step by step. But very, very simple stuff. And of course, you can still try it for free for the first 30 days with the code TRIAL in all capitals. That actually applies to many of our indicator packages like Caretaker's full indicator suite. Of course, the Quant Prime service if you're a little bit more advanced, and then the Crown VMP. But yeah, anyways, we'll just jump right into it, starting off with the most important chart of the day. And that, of course, is the moon chart. No, it's not the most important chart, but it is the most fun chart, and it keeps this this channel nice and light. And looking at it here, we do see that Bitcoin has initiated a bull moon. The bull moon essentially has been a generally upside period for about 14 to 15 days whenever we've seen it in the past. If we go ahead and use the Quant Prime service to actually backtest this one, we can see that over the full history of Bitcoin, it actually does have some pretty decent results by following a very, 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 very simple strategy. Open up when it's a full moon, close it when it's over, which is again a 14 to 15 day spread typically. Profit factor just above 2.7, and quite consistent. I would say that profitable trades certainly on the more or less break even side, just under 58% profitable close rate, but again, that profit factor makes it very appealing long term. Anyways, going back into the chart, this one fired off, of course, with the new moon. This was officially on Sunday, and so that means that we have about a 14 to 15 day period from Sunday where you generally be expecting or better off betting on general upside. Now, does it always work out like that? Again, 58% strike rate or just under 58% strike rate does not mean 100% fucking strike rate. Holy shit, it blows my mind that some people some very, very outspoken commenters just do not seem to understand this about probabilities. I think that most people certainly do, but goddamn, it's like, holy shit, son, how do you get dressed in the morning? Because it's going to be difficult if you don't understand these things. Anyways, again, it's not guaranteed to work out. 58% probability is very far away from 100% probability. In fact, the past one, the last one failed. The one before that did work out. The one before that failed. And then the past couple before that actually worked out. And the past 4 before that were failures. Again, it's just a game of probabilities. And in this case, it does give us some, general areas of interest for time and also price. When we go into the strategy tester here and we go to our fucking TradingView always changes this around, but let's go to our, is it going to be under trade analysis? Yes. When we go to our winning trades, the average winning trade returned about 14.25%. The average losing trade, when it does lose, because it will lose every once in a while, well, not every once in a while, but half the time almost, does lose an average about 7%. I'm not saying that this is, by the way, the best strategy of all time. Of course, you could easily manage your risk and profit taking significantly better than simply just opening on the moon and closing on the other moon. But 15% to the upside, to put it into context, that puts Bitcoin back at around 96,000 bucks. That's a very fucking important number. We'll come back to that one a little bit later. And again, that gives us a time spread between Sunday and as much as Monday, the 28th of April. Now, to add on to this, we also have been looking at this Fibonacci time extension here, which I will bring up. This one is anchored from the high to the low of the previous market cycle, and we've seen it actually work out very well and very consistently throughout this current market cycle, typically nailing a bunch of the tops like you see right here and right here in 2023, the breakout here in November, later in 2023, the low, this is the only one that actually caught the low. All of the other ones were breakouts or highs. This one a bit of a short-term breakout / high. This one over here, essentially the high. Yes, it wasn't exactly on the high. It's not going to be perfect. Just give us kind of like a date range of interest, if you will. And of course, we have another one coming up relatively soon. Guess where that is pivoted at? The 26th of April. So that would be very much in alignment with what we do see from the moon. So good confluence there. And generally, when we've seen price get to that time, it has more often than not correlated with a top top, in some cases a breakout, in some cases a major low. So it really just depends what direction Bitcoin is approaching from coming into that date. So if Bitcoin is continuing to rally, which again is a slightly higher probability here into the end of this month, then we would be expecting a local high somewhere around that date. How high can it get? Like I said, if we're going off of just straight statistics, on average, those trades, if you're using the moons, do return about 14-15%. That would put you at about 95, 96,000 bucks. That's also the 618 fib right here. So good confluence between those. I don't necessarily believe that Bitcoin has to get exactly to the average, of course. I mean, there's going to be variance within there, but likely somewhere between the 50% level and the 618, which gives us a range between what, like 92 to 96, something like this. And again, somewhere around that date, assuming that Bitcoin rallies into that date, I'd very likely be looking for a local high and a pullback. And we'll go over kind of what the more long-term looks from there. Again, this is all just kind of relatively short/medium-term price action. Anyways, on top of that, we've also identified in past videos that there is multiple drives of bullish divergence on caretaker's RSI right here on the 2-day time frame. Pretty decent time frame to be fair. And that typically does have a target somewhere around in the short term, that green moving average, which is a 55 EMA. That is officially at $87,500, which also lines up with a few other things as well, actually. When we go over here and check out on the meta signals setup, this one actually we did not show yesterday. We did show the daily, and I'll go back to it in just a moment, but Stonksy Jewel, what is this? So that's a good name for a template. Anyways, my point is that this one fired off on a 4-hour time frame at a price of 84,870, somewhere around there, and it does give us targeted regions of interest. Target number 1 has already been hit. Obviously, that's 85,003 or 400 essentially. Target number 2 is just below $86,000. That is around about a 50% probability. Target number 3, which is less than a 30% probability, is actually quite close to the 2-day time frame presumed target based off of that divergence, which is 86,600. These, however, are all secondary to the daily one here. This one we did bring up yesterday, and I believe a couple days prior than that as well. And by the way, you can actually get these setup alerts for free in MetaSignal's Discord. You can just join the link in the description below. It'll bring you over there. They also have a free trial for their service as well if you want to check it out. I like my free trials because my free trial, it sounds like I'm saying Charles, but my free trial is just because, you get to actually see the damn thing in action. And the best way to find out if it's for you or not for you is to try it out risk-free. Anyways, target number 1 on this one, which is a rather high probability of just under 70%, is at 87,250. That is very, 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 very much in alignment with the 2-day time frame target. The second target here, again, close to a 50% probability, is going to be at $95,000. Really fucking close, again, to the average returns for this strategy. And then obviously the 618 fib that we were looking at earlier as well. So that's in there. Now, target number 3 is the moonshot. That's like bull market fucking on and just get long as fuck, I guess. I personally don't think that that's going to be happening. I think best we'll see something around target number 2, but that theoretically would be 110,000 US dollars, highly inflated US dollars, highly tariffed US dollars, but $110,000 nonetheless. So again, less than a 30% probability for that one. I would say that that's very, very unlikely in this case, or at least in the more short/medium term. I do think that Bitcoin does have a chance here, but it would require a much more prolonged sideways market. Anyways, moving on from there and getting back to my notes, I do want to acknowledge that the 4-hour price action pivot is still, where exactly is it? I think it's, yes, okay, it's actually moved up a little bit from yesterday's video. Priorly, it was at about $83,500. Now it is at about $84,000, meaning that as long as Bitcoin's above $84,000 on a 4-hour closing basis, it's better to be betting on some short-term upside. Of course, as it stands, Bitcoin is still actually on lower highs on timeframes that actually matter, like daily and above, but lower term timeframes have flipped around into a short-term uptrend. So again, does a 4-hour supersede like a daily, 2-day, 5-day, weekly, monthly? Obviously fucking not, but can be used as a basis for, managing in the short term here. At least that's kind of how I'd be looking at it myself. Anyways, yes, also supporting evidence for likely upside in the short term, meaning like the next couple of weeks, would be going back here. Daily stochastic momentum is going to be also continuing to the upside, actually working its way and rejecting the bearish control zone as long as Bitcoin's above 79,650. So pretty good right there. 2-day time frame also, I believe, closing tonight and having a fresh twist to the upside, getting out of that bearish control zone as well, as long as Bitcoin's above $80,000. 3-day time frame, which is this one closing tonight. Okay, show me the damn thing. Yeah, it is closing tonight. This one will also continue to the upside, just narrowly getting out of the bearish control zone if Bitcoin can close above 82,700. 5-day time frame is also going to be having a chance to cross freshly to the upside. This one not, however, closing anytime soon, so not super relevant right now. And then the weekly did actually open crossed up on Monday. The current pivot is 83,600. Now, I want to be really fucking clear in stating this. More medium to long term, I still do think the best case scenario for Bitcoin is generally a sideways range between $95,000 and about $75,000. All of the things that we spoke about regarding downside are still very much relevant, but of course, Bitcoin can rally, a little bit before there, put in yet another lower high, then come back down. But if Bitcoin can maintain on any sort of a downside movement, basically mid to low 70s and not really break it, that to me would be really fucking bullish if Bitcoin is still above 70 by, let's say, June, somewhere around June, let's say. So for now, I do think that the short-term move to the upside, but we got a lot of time. We got a lot of fucking time to spend here. Anyways, yes. Okay. Let me just make sure that I've hit everything. I think I have hit everything on this one. Do we want to go over, the issues? Should we talk about bearish things perhaps? Yeah, maybe I should explain just very, very quickly with a couple of charts. While I would still be a lot more defensive of this market continuing to, new all-time highs from here without some sort of prolonged sideways consolidation and, realistically a potential to actually fall apart as well. Well, that would be one in part due to this 10-day timeframe stochastic momentum regression being broken as of the last closure for the first time since October of 2022. That means that all of the lows, all of the major macro lows throughout this bull market have come alongside tests of this trendline regression. And if Bitcoin is breaking it as recent as this last 10-day closure, well, that's a change of behavior. So while I am likely looking for a rally here, I would still, if I see this thing turn down below this trend line again, that would be, again, just concerning to me. Concerning. I mean, it just makes me more holding on to the downside overall. Now, on top of that, if we go over to our moving averages, this is still very much relevant too. We see that the 5 EMA, that red moving average, crossed the downside of the 21, officially confirmed on the last 10-day closure. And in the past of Bitcoin, that has always led to a minimum test of the green moving average of the 55 EMA, again, minimum, meaning that Bitcoin at least gets there, usually has a bounce there, but in some cases does go much lower. That's happened every time we've seen that interplay since literally fucking 2011, except for the one that we saw last year. It crossed ever so briefly, kind of in a similar fashion to what we're looking at right here. So maybe that's a counterpoint to what I'm saying, but it is still in there nonetheless, and that is an objective signal. So going off of probabilities, it's more likely to beget at least a test down to that green moving average, which is currently just above $70,000. Now, again, in the short term, I do think that Bitcoin will rally, and it doesn't need to reach down there exactly right now. Again, these things are, these things can take time. I mean, look in the past, over here, it took 1, 2, 3, so that would be 30 days. This one over here took 1, 2, 3, 4 to officially test it. So that's 40 days. This one over here took 90 days. It can take some time, of course, but the longer time that it does take, the more that the green moving average will be pulled up naturally, and so theoretically, I could imagine that the 55 will actually be aligning with the current lows at about $74,000. Maybe 4 or 5 closures out from here, three to 5 closures out from here, I'd say. So it could be. If Bitcoin is going to be bullish, really what I'm considering here is something like this. It goes up a little bit, somewhere into the mid to low 90s, whatever it ends up being, don't really care. But I do think that regardless of whether you're super bullish or super bearish, probably does get rejected there. And then if you are going to be bullish, maybe it comes back down towards those lows, but bounces and just spends its time going sideways for a while. And then if we get to June, July area, and this is still the case, that would be really fucking good in my opinion. That would be setting up a major base for a major rally into, I don't know, let's say August, September, October area, something like this. So yeah, if you see something like that, then I would be expecting new all-time highs around that period. Again, certainly later this year, but yeah, until then, it is on the onus to kind of for the Bulas to prove themselves rather than the Bears at this point. Also of note here, we did have this breakdown as well between the Crown Oscillator. I don't really know what to name this thing. It's just I called it the Crown Oscillator. I don't know if I'll even release it, but so far it's actually been pretty interesting. This one has been holding in a very, very, very clear sort of, I don't want to call it support, but it is support trend line for, again, the macro lows that we've seen during this bull market. And that would be exactly on this red line right here, correlating with the September 2024 lows and the September 2023 lows. And as of the last 5-day closure, we've actually seen, again, it close below. So there is a change of behavior here for sure. Well, I shouldn't say for sure yet, but it seems very, very likely to me, which, if the prior behavior was just going up and to the right, I mean, makes me reconsider at least. So I do think that Bitcoin, is going to at best have a major consolidation here for, the next couple months. And if that happens, yeah, I'd actually start to be pretty damn bullish. But until then, I'm going to continue to have my personal sort of bearish bias on price action, despite being short-term bullish. So hopefully that makes sense. And again, for the people who are in the quantum wave bands, you can actually claim your access into the Discord, just again in the same way that you claimed your access for the indicators. Or if you're not in the quantum wave bands and you want to try it out, of course you can use the code trial in all capitals. It's a very it's a very low term time frame scalping strategy, which I think is really good for beginners because you can see what trade setups should look like, and it gives you objective areas to potentially consider an entry and also potentially consider an exit. You don't need to exactly trade it exactly in the way that it states those. Sometimes, I mean, that is going to be the best way to do it. Like you see right on over here, this past one that happened on Saturday, literally did catch the low on that signal and did catch about the high over here. But it is a scalping strategy. So a lot of the time you will find better entries by being a little bit more conservative, perhaps once you get those enter long signals. And of course, not every trade is destined to work out. This thing did struggle during this last downside move. It's just going to happen when you have a long strategy, but it is what it is. And the idea is long-term consistent gains over time, which you can see right here. It's actually been quite consistent for the past few years, actually. I mean, we could even backtest it further than that, but I think the past few years are the most interesting to be, mindful of. Anyways, that is where we will end things for today. As always, I want to wish you the best of best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow.